Thank you so much, Mark. It's wonderful to see all your faces. I have you all up in the gallery mode on my screen, so I can greet you as I see you all greeting me. So thank you so much for showing up today. I want to begin just by acknowledging the inspiration for today's words that I'll share with you. And the inspiration comes from Rabbi Jill Hammer's book called Return to the Place. And I'm reading it. It's a wonderful book. And if you find today interesting, you might turn to it. And there's also a website with a lot of guided meditations. So if you find inspiration from today, just know that I found inspiration from her, and you might also. And just let's reflect on that word inspiration for just a moment. And let's inspire. Let's take a nice deep breath in. Notice where that breath lands in the body. What part of the body did it fill for you when you did it without thinking about it? Take another one in and notice where it goes when you do think about it. And let that breath out. So in Rabbi Hammer's book, Return to the Place, which is based on Sefer Yetzirah, she calls upon this idea of ruach meruach, which can be translated as breath from breath. It can be translated as spirit from spirit. It can be translated as wind from wind. And so we're going to really, really pay attention to our breath today. And a lot of times I notice when I've led meditation or when others lead meditation, a lot of the attention is paid to the exhalation. And maybe we in our own bodies pay a lot of attention to that exhalation as well, and maybe not as much to the bringing in of the breath, to the inspiration, as much as the letting go. So we're going to try to pay equal attention to both of those pieces of breathing. They're both equally important. And this idea of ruach me ruach, breath from breath, spirit from spirit. And I'd like us to pay attention to the holiness of that act, the holiness of that act of the giving and receiving nature of breath. When we do that inspiration, we are receiving, breathing in, receiving the nurturing quality, the life-giving quality of the air that we breathe in. And as we exhale, we are giving. And giving actually another sort of life-giving experience to the world that surrounds us, the natural world that surrounds us. And that process is a really holy process, a process that we do without thinking. It's a subconscious process unless we're paying attention to it. It's a natural process of our body. And then also to notice, I'm speaking right now, most of you are not speaking right now, but the nature of the voice itself, when we are speaking in our everyday lives, we can't do that without the exhalation happening. We cannot speak without breath leaving our body, because voice is vibrated breath. It's all that the voice is. It's a vibrated breath. So momentarily, we're going to sit and we're going to begin sitting just with the breath. And I'm going to guide us at the beginning with the breath and ask us to try to focus on breathing into different parts of the body. And it'll probably help you to rest your eyes as we engage in this practice. So let's all begin, if we haven't already, by finding a comfortable way to sit. And today, when I say comfortable way to sit, of course, it's always a good and wholesome thing to find a way to have the body upright and in alignment, noticing between left and right sitting bones, front and back. And today, let's also just mostly pay attention to finding a way to sit that is really comfortable in our body, so that anything that might be an obstacle today, a physical obstacle, we do our best to find a way to address that right now so that we can focus as much as possible on the breath. So just find the way that you can make yourself most comfortable right now, taking care of the physical body. And once we do that, just noticing without changing anything at all, what's happening with the breath naturally right now. Is it a shallow breath because you're relaxed? Perhaps right before this you were exercising and you're still having deep breaths. Whatever's happening with your breath right now, just notice where it is naturally. And now we're going to inhale just into the upper part of the chest. Right here, you can look at your screen. Just take a moment to look at your screen and notice where my hand is. You can place your hand there if that's helpful. Breathing in just to this upper part, not all the way down. Maybe these are smaller breaths because they don't go deep down into the body. Noticing what it feels like when we fill this area with breath. Feeling the air move through the vocal folds on the way down to the upper chest. Feeling the warmth and the moist quality of the breath as it leaves your body. We'll take a few more breaths in this area, breathing in, breathing out at your own pace. And now we're going to work on filling the upper lungs, and you can take a look at your screen again if you'd like to, and if you'd like to move your hand down from this area just a little lower here. And it might even help to take your other hand and place it behind you to move the chest forward. And then you can let it go. And we're going to breathe into the upper lungs now, feeling this area and noticing that we might feel a widening in that area as we breathe in. And then as we breathe out, not allowing ourselves to collapse like this, but keeping ourselves erect and forward, and maybe checking in with that hand at the back, allowing the chest cavity to stay nice and forward and hollow so that it can be filled. Breathing in, filling the upper lungs, and breathing out. Breathing in and out. And you may notice that area rising and falling as the breath enters and leaves the body. And continuing with a few breaths on your own at your own pace. And moving your hand just below, just to where the ribs meet, right in the center. And keeping yourself in this seated posture that allows for space in the ribs. And now we're going to breathe all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, filling our lungs up as much as we can with that expansive inspiration. And then as we let go of that breath, allowing that to be a slow and long breath out. Noticing the life-giving quality of the air that we breathe as it enters, filling our lung cavities, noticing the life-giving quality of the air that we exhale as it leaves our body, allowing that cavity to contract without collapsing. And then starting that process again. And this time you should really be able to feel with your hand on your body the movement of the breath as it fills space and as that space is carved out and emptied within your body. as you continue to take those life-giving breaths in and give those life-giving breaths out, also notice what's going on in other parts of your body. Are your muscles relaxed or contracted? Is the skin on the face tightened, or can you let go as you breathe in and out? And finally, you can take both hands and place them on the belly. And this time, breathe all the way down into your abdomen, filling up that space. And you can even place the hands on the sides of the abdomen and feel if the breath is moving that part of the body outward. Long, deep breaths in and out. And coming back to the idea of being comfortable in our physical bodies at this time, recognizing that there may be an area that's causing discomfort right now. And if that's the case, take the attention to that area of the body. And see if you can imagine a cooling and healing blue light hovering right above that area, breathing into that area, and then relaxing and letting go, allowing the breath to leave the body, breathing healing and comfort into any area that's causing pain or discomfort, and breathing out relaxation and letting go. We're going to sit and focus on the breath just for 2 more minutes. You can choose any one of those areas to continue breathing into and breathing out from. And we'll come out of that 2-minute sit with song. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da yai da 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 da. Yai da yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da.
Thank you so much, Cantor, Kerith, Spencer-Shapiro, for leading us so beautifully again. Practice today, and friends, it's an opportunity for those of us who are not reciting Kaddish to be present for those and supportive for those who are. You're invited, those who are reciting Kaddish, because of observing a yard site, or if you're mourning, or if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish, you're invited to put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat box, and to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite Kaddish together. Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yama, Divrach, Yirutei, Yamlich Malchutei.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה. בעלמה דיברה כרותי וימליך מלך. בחי חון וביום חון ובחי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מברך לעולם ועל מיה. ויתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלל שמי דקדושה בריחו. תעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תוסבכתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה לחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום אמריו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Friends, thank you so much, as always, for joining us for practice today. We had very moving to see over 330 people coming together to support each other, just to sit together and breathe, led so beautifully by Kerith today. So thanks for being here. Those of you who are able and interested are welcome to stay on for a few minutes of conversation with our teacher for today, Cantor, Kerith, Spencer-Shapiro. For those who are leaving us, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be led in practice tomorrow by Rabbi Susan Leiter, same time, same place, 12:30 Eastern. And thanks to Adi Stein as ever for holding our space, our tech space so beautifully, and to Susan Murback for sponsoring today's practice to honor her friendship with her dear friend Phyllis on the occasion of her birthday, and to honor her strength and courage. Happy birthday to you, Phyllis. Thanks so much, Susan. Thanks to everyone for being here today. And as always, of course, if you have questions, excuse me, if you have questions that you'd like to put to Kerith, you are invited to put that into the chat box, and preface it if it's a question with the word question in the caps, so keep an eye on that. I do want to note, I think probably most people have heard, and do want to note the passing of the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, putting in the chat box a quote. It's one of a zillion that we could draw on, in which he taught breathing in, I calm body and mind, breathing out, I smile, dwelling in the present moment. I know this is the only moment. We'll try to find some quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh for our sit each day this week as well, just to honor him and his contribution to this practice from the Buddhist perspective. So Kerith, I guess I wanted to invite you as a cantor to speak a little bit, and as someone who uses voice and song, whether it's with words or a nigun like you ended with, because I'm curious about your, I'm not trained in this at all, but you are, and I'm curious about how you take the practice you were describing, awareness of the breath and where it is in the body and how it feeds the body, and then translate that into sound. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's
no, this is like something. This
in my
is
mind.
not on the spot. This is something
Okay.
I think about all the time. So, and actually, it's fascinating because I've led meditations for singers, and I do not start with the breath when I lead meditations for singers. And if there are any other professional singers out there, you might find starting your meditation practice with the breath to be incredibly challenging because anytime someone says focus on your breathing to a singer, it means something very different than what it means to someone who doesn't have vocal training. So for those of us who have vocal training, and particularly classical training and bel canto training, that's going to mean something focus on your breath means something very particular that is very different than what it means in a meditation space. So when I started sitting really seriously, and people would lead meditations where we started with pay attention to the breath, it was incredibly difficult for me because I started doing the kind of breathing that I need to do for singing, and only that kind of breathing. And then I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't just notice, right? Paying attention to me meant doing something rather than just noticing. So, which may be universal, that may be all of us, but I think for singers, the breath, there's a particular challenge there. So I had to train myself to not move there. I've also recently been studying some pranayama breathing techniques, which I brought a little bit of that to us today, and breathing into different parts of the body. And that also was really helpful because it's just a very different way of thinking about breathing. And then the final piece about applying the breath to the voice, and I touched really briefly on this at the beginning, the voice is vibrated breath. That's how we create voice. So the air gets vibrated through the structure of the vocal folds in this magical thing that produces sound, but we can't see it. We can see instruments that are held outside of our bodies, but the voice is incredibly mysterious because we can't see the apparatus that actually creates that sound. I had the great privilege of studying with the Israeli performance artist, Victoria Hanna, who does a lot of work about carving out space in time through the voice. And I studied with her during pandemic over Zoom, and it completely changed my way of thinking about what I'm doing when I'm using the voice to lead prayer. And kind of opened worlds about actually creating worlds as we use the voice for prayer and truly for anything, and what kind of world are we creating, and what is the intention that goes behind that as we carve out that space in the universe with the sound that we make. And so any sound that we make, we can react in anger and we're carving out that kind of a space. Or we can react in utilizing this gift of voice that we have. We can react in love and compassion and carve out spiritual spaces of love and compassion through the waves of sound that we use to etch space into the universe around us. So I could go on for hours talking about this, but I'll leave it there.
Okay, I'm glad I did not put you on the spot at all. There's a really taken with this Laura's question. Some aspect of this sit inspired both a sense of deep inner wholeness and a profound connectedness to others. Sounds good to me. I'll order that too. How can we take this, which seems to come from breath, and keep it going throughout the day? So that's a great question, because we always like to use this time to consider how to bring the practice into the rest of our day.
Yeah.
Not just where we're
So
sitting.
here's the great thing about breathing. You are always doing it. So that's number one. And even just taking, noticing 3 breaths during the day. If you find yourself in a trying situation, where is my breath when I find myself challenged? I know for me, when I find myself challenged and I take time to notice where my breath is, it's constricted. My breath is constricted. So if I can even take just a moment when I find myself challenged and say, okay, this is where my breath is. Let's take 2 breaths to move it into an expansive place and then respond. Can be a wonderful way of doing that. Or just noticing, you can even set yourself, we are all carrying these devices around with us. How about an hourly timer that says breathe? I mean, you're already doing it, but notice it.
Yeah. Carol asked a good question about when we're visualizing. This is an interesting thing to note. When we're visualizing breathing into parts of our body that are not, not the parts that we usually think of, like the lungs and the belly, but are, the shoulders, the neck, the arms, the legs, that Carol suggests that sometimes don't you have to gently move those areas to feel like you're breathing into it? In other words, maybe some motion maybe is called for. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that's going to be different for different people, depending on, your particular way of visualizing. For me, I don't need to move the area in order to visualize the breath going in to that spot and then leaving. I don't need to move it, but if that is helpful for you, then that's what you should do. Particularly, I would say if you can't visualize without moving, I would start with moving and then try each time to visualize without moving, and see what happens. Maybe next time you might surprise yourself and be able to visualize without moving. Or it may be just that's how your particular setup works, and then you need to honor that and do what's right for you.
Yeah. Very specific, practical question. When you do this exercise, do you breathe in through the nose or mouth, or also for the exhalations? And what about the pauses in between?
Yeah. So when I do this exercise, let's start with the pauses. When I do this exercise, I actually try not to pause. It's which is unnatural, right? So I do try to keep like an active cycle of in, out as soon as I hit the bottom, to then breathe back in, and that makes it different, right? That makes it a practice rather than a noticing. So I don't put a pause in there. Now, that actually can be physically challenging. So you can do that for try that sometime for a short time and see how that works for you. And you can do that for a little while and then breathe with a pause in between and then come back to it. And breathing into those different areas of the body should feel very different physically as well. So, okay, so the pausing was the first part. And then what was this? Sorry, the second part.
Then where you breathe in through the nose, breathe in, inhalation, nose, mouth. What do you do? What's your choice?
Yeah, I'm breathing through the nose. I'm breathing through the nose. In and out.
In and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also want to bring in some liturgy here too, because of course there's at least two lines of liturgy that always remind us of breath. The last line from the 150th Psalm, Kol HaNeshama Tahallel, let everything that has breath, or let every soul praise God, and also Nishmat Kol Chai Tivarech Et Shimcha. The breath of all life praises that which is created. So I wonder, when you are singing those passages in liturgy, whether this awareness that comes from practice with the breath comes in for you. I guess what I'm thinking, let me just throw in one piece of the Nishmat Kol Chai, that let everything that has breath, but it's really the breath of all life. Let it praise your name is kind of a mind game in a way, because it seems like it's addressed to God, but it also is bringing in the idea of the breath of all life, which for me is a reminder that it's just a reminder. My default position is that I am breathing. But once I bring attention to it, I become aware, no, it's never the case that I am breathing. I am being breathed always by the breath of life. And so, and I have the blessing of being conscious of that, right? We don't know whether other aspects of creation have that kind of awareness, but they certainly are. Certainly the natural world is being breathed as well. So I just wanted to see if you wanted to comment on either or both of those lines of liturgy in relation to breath.
Well, I think you commented so beautifully. I'm not sure that I have much to add to it. I feel very similarly to you, Mark. And then only just to say that, it's hopefully, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do correctly, I'm always thinking about, about the words that I'm chanting as I'm chanting them, and filling them, with the inspiration of the intent of what they mean to me. And hopefully, all of you are doing it. All of us are doing that. That's how we create holy community, even in this kind of a space.
Yeah, I think I should have pointed out that the Hebrew word neshama has this dual meaning, right? The root of it, anyway, that there's a close equivalence between soul and breath. That breath itself represents soul or spirit. And so when we bring awareness to the dynamic of breath, we're really bringing awareness to the presence of spirit, right?
Yeah.
And then Dayenu, that's enough, really, to be. And that's all these strategies for being mindful of the breath are really reminders to, as you're inviting us to use our technology to remember this, to pause during the day, to remember the spiritual power that is animating us at every moment. And just to bring in, Thich Nhat Hanh back again. Oops, I lost the quote. Let me go back up.
While you're looking for it, I'll just return us to that word inspiration. Being, the English equivalent there with neshama, physically means inspiring, bringing breath into our bodies. But it also contains the word spirit, and that's not by accident. It's filling our body with spirit and noticing this connection between breathing and holiness.
Breathing in, I calm body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. Kerith, thank you so much, as always, for leading us so beautifully. Everyone is always,
Mark.
I know, so appreciative of your making time and your, I know, a very busy schedule as Cantor of a very large congregation to do this. And so we're grateful to you for making time. It's always great to visit with you. And want to thank you, Susan. Happy birthday to Phyllis. Thanks, ID. Most of all, to each of you, thanks for being here. As always, your incredible devotion to this community of practice, holding this practice, holding this container, helping us go step by step and breath by breath through these days together. It's great to be with you.